Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of Naseej Academy webinar series that aims to share knowledge, ideas, and reflections on topic of interest, new trends, and rapid technology in fields of learning, libraries, and cultural institutions, in addition to knowledge management and digital transformation. Our webinar today is a forward-looking one with the title Artificial Intelligence for Documentary Heritage. Related to that, I remember a statement I wrote in one of my articles published about 5 years ago. It describes the relation between human and artificial intelligence. I said that our desire to give artificial intelligence the human intelligence has led to the creation of new intelligence for human. And if we focus on here and now, we can tell this webinar comes at the right time as we stand at the intersection of cutting-edge technology and historical preservation. This webinar explores how artificial intelligence is not only reshaping the landscape of archival work, but also deepening our responsibility to safeguard authenticity and trust. It aims to show that AI can be a powerful tool in the stewardship of documentary heritage to make a significant breakthrough within the digital transformation momentum. From automation or automatic classification to enhancing discoverability, AI technologies offer promising tools for archivists and heritage professionals. However, these tools are only as effective as the archival standards and best practices that guided them. That's why we all also highlight in this webinar how traditional archival knowledge is essential to shaping AI systems that respect originality, context, and authenticity. It is not only about using AI technology, but also about embedding archival ethics and expertise into its very design. Finally, we will explore the kind of AI literacy needed by those who work with documentary heritage as professionals. We must not only understand what AI can do, but also be equipped to critically engage with how it should be used. We look forward to stimulating ideas, questions, and inquiries that bridging technology and tradition, moving towards a future to shape our understanding of using AI for documentary heritage. To achieve all of that, we already mentioned a few minutes ago, we are delighted and honored to have Luciana Duranti, as she humbly described herself. I am a professor emerita at high school, University of British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. My area of specialization are archival theory, diplomatics, and digital records. My research aims to find solutions to digital record issues that can be universally applied. Professor Luciana, as a principal investigator at the InterPARES research project, which is a multinational and multidisciplinary research project studying the long-term preservation of trustworthy digital records, and I trust AI. She is also affiliate full professor at Information School, University of Washington at Seattle at USA. And last but not least, Professor Luciana chair the Government of Canada Standard Board at National Standard of Canada Electronic Records as documentary evidence, and a member of the UNESCO Memory of the World. I will stop here and give the virtual floor to our respectable and valuable speaker, Luciana, to start her presentation. And after that, as we used to do in Naseej Academy webinar, we will receive your question to be answered by Luciana. Please, Luciana, start the webinar. All of us are on fire to listen to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Metavalli. I will talk specifically from the archival point of view, but keep in mind that much of what I will say applies to all the areas of information science. So, not moving.
It's fine.
It's not moving.
The arrow, you touch down.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. So the purpose of this presentation is to show how effectively AI can be used for archival purposes, but also to demonstrate how traditional knowledge is necessary to the development of artificial intelligence tools in order to manage documentary heritage in a trustworthy way, maintaining its authenticity. And finally, I will propose the kind of AI literacy required of professionals working with documentary heritage. So this Trust AI project is the fifth phase of the InterPARES research project. The InterPARES research project started in 1998, and its purpose was, and it has been throughout these 27 years, to ensure that records and documents in general can be preserved reliable, accurate, and authentic across technologies and regardless of technological obsolescence. So in the beginning, we were dealing with office systems, with databases, and then we started dealing with interactive system, experiential system in InterPARES 2. And then in InterPARES 3, we started dealing with the cloud and with the problems of applying solutions, technological solutions, in places which did not have the financial ability to build great systems. And finally, artificial intelligence came about, so we felt we had to address the issues presented by artificial intelligence. Now, for your interest, InterPARES in Latin means among peers. And the title was chosen because we wanted to make sure that the participants in the research who were from many countries in 5 continents and who belonged into many disciplines like computer science, law, and security and history, and of course archival science and library science, etc., felt that their contributions were equal, that there was not going to be a prevalent point of view, that every decision was deriving from an agreement. And then we made of it an acronym: International Research on Permanent Authentic Records in Electronic Systems. That's the best way of building acronyms. You first decide what a word is, and then you find, for each single letter, a meaning that relates to your research. So the fifth phase of InterPARES, which will end at the end of 2026, aims to design, develop, and leverage artificial intelligence to support the ongoing availability and accessibility of trustworthy records. So trustworthy in my book means 3 things. In InterPARES book means 3 things. Reliable, which means that we can trust the content, the message. Accurate, we can trust the data. And authentic, we can trust that the document is what it claims to be. Records is synonym of archival document. That is any document made or received in the course of activity for the purposes of that activity and kept by its creator for its own purposes. So we wanted to maintain these records trustworthy through the use of artificial intelligence tool. And how could we do it? Well, we needed a sustainable ongoing partnership, producing original research, training students and other highly qualified personnel, and generating this connection, this virtuous circle between academia, archival institutions, government records professionals, industry, and the feedback loop that reinforces the knowledge and the capabilities of each party. So the goals were identifying existing AI technologies that can address critical records and archives challenges, developing AI tools specifically for archives, ensure accountability of archives when using AI tools, be they commercial or developed in-house, and in all cases, ensure that archival knowledge informs the development of AI tools. So we were not going to adjust archival knowledge to technology, but we were going to develop technology that incorporated archival knowledge. So that's why I speak about AI for archives, by archives, in archives. So this team is made up of 101 partner organizations in 42 countries, in 5 continents, 131 academics, 129 professionals, 3 postdoctoral specialists in AI, and 60 graduate academic assistants in any given year. Now, the graduate academic assistants are very important, and I'll tell you why, not just because of the work they do, but because they graduate, and when they graduate, they go and work for some organizations in their archives, libraries, museums, wherever, and then when the next research comes about, they bring that organization in. That's why we have 101 partner organizations in 42 countries, because all the graduate students who have worked in InterPARES since 1998, then they became professionals and brought their organization in. And this is why the products of InterPARES are so rich, because there are so many voices coming into it. So the fact that this is a multinational interdisciplinary endeavor means that we first have to understand each other, starting with the language we use. And we're not talking about English or French. We're talking about terminology that we use. In fact, at the beginning of every InterPARES phase, we have written a document on which we all had to sign, on which we agreed on the way we were using the words. So why that was a problem? Because archivists talk about records, computer scientists talk about data. To archivists, data are the smallest meaningful unit of information within a record. To an AI specialist, data is organized information. In other words, as my co-director Mohamed says, data is content. So key to our work have been AI tutorials for non-AI researchers and archival and diplomatics theory tutorials for non-archival researchers. And these endeavors are supported by the terminology database, which is developed in collaboration by a multidisciplinary team. Now, the terminology database is very important. It has been through the years the foundation of the multilingual archival terminology database of the International Council on Archives, which now has 26 languages in it, including Arabic. It is important because it has 3 components. One is the definition of the terms, the way we use it within InterPARES, so that when you read our papers, you know that the term we use means something specific as defined in the terminology database. The second component is a dictionary, that is the same term as defined in all available published glossaries and vocabularies. And then a third part is, in fact, the analysis of graphics that show the analysis of the entities that we discuss. So indirect outcomes of our research is that we create new professionals. Students from our disciplines end up understanding and valuing the archival perspectives. There is knowledge co-creation that enriches not just archival science and records management, but artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, information science, law, and ethics. And of course, we aim to sensitizing AI developers and scholars to the role of AI in record keeping and archival preservation, and to the role of archival concepts and principles in AI design and development. The studies, in this moment, we have 54 ongoing studies, are all international in that the team of researchers for each study is composed of members of different countries, and interdisciplinary also is composed of members of different disciplines. The studies focus on all aspects of archival functions, so we have teams that work on creation and use, others on appraisal and acquisition, arrangement and description, retention and preservation, etc. So I am going to make a few examples of the studies that we have been carrying out to show both the diversity and also the vast applicability of studies that seem to be very specific. So this one on medieval parchments. The State Archives of Milan has digitized 130,000 parchments that were nearly unreadable, with limited accessibility and usefulness. Now, the parchment, as you can imagine, parchment is the skin of an animal, right? It's very expensive. So they're used for the most important records, usually the legal records, those that create rights or establish duties. And so they are privileges, they're agreements, they're contracts, treaties, indentures, and they are transactions usually written by notaries, at least definitely in Europe. Now, you would say, okay, this is very interesting, but you know, parchments are just in Europe, in the old countries. No, because the people who emigrate from the old countries to the new countries, like Canada, through the past couple of centuries have brought with them all those documents that proved that they had properties, that they had rights, that they had things that would support their staying in the new country. And so our university libraries and archives and our national archives have plenty of those. And so what we created using AI is useful to them all. So deep learning emerged as a tool to make this digitized parchment readable. But what it could not do was to create the metadata. That is, the data about each one of these digitized parchment that would allow for establish their identity and communicating it and their integrity over time. So Emanuele Frontoni, a professor at the University of Macerata, and his Vision Robotic for AI team developed a tool based on the knowledge of paleography. So believe me, even with AI, we need all disciplines. The purpose was to recognize the identity attributes of thousands of digitized parchments issued by city notaries in medieval times. Identity attributes, of course, have to do with who is the author, who is the addressee, what is the action, what is the date, etc. So this study uses computer vision, which is a field of AI that enables computers and systems to derive information from digital images, videos, and other visual input, and take action or make recommendations based on that information. So the feature that was chosen by the researchers to be identified was the signium, which is an authentication element affixed by notaries. There you go. That's the way they look like. The signium is a notarial sign, is specific and personally drawn by every single notary in the top part of a record and before his signature at the bottom of the record. Identifying the signium means that every notary can be recognized and tracked in a virtually infinite series of documents. So once you have that signium and you have linked it to a notary, then you can go very quickly through all the parchments you have and attribute them and create the metadata for them. Now, this is the way it is called, is Perganet. You can find it online. It's a deep learning framework for automatic appearance-based analysis. Of course, you have first to scan the parchments, and then you need to have a binary classification, recto verso, front and back, text detection, signa detection, and recognition, etc. Now, once this tool is fully developed, well, it is actually at this time, but not widely available, it could be used in a wide range of applications. So it can recognize the writing of individual authors. It can analyze annotations in the back of a document. It can retrace previous archival arrangement, recognize images and other features, identify common patterns in maps, in drawings, and make publicly available relevant AI dataset. Now, you can say, okay, for the parchment. No, indeed, think for a moment of the letterhead of any organization. The letterhead tends to have the name of the organization and often a symbol by it, a logo, a drawing that identifies that organization. Well, that one thing, if you go through very large series of documents, can identify the authors of all those records. A second study is very different. It is about exploring the development of an AI model that predicts the existence of personal information in a record to help archivists to manage privacy responsibilities relating to records. The researchers are Alcides Alcoba, who is an AI specialist, Paige Ullman, who is an archivist, and Jim Suderman, who is a records manager. Existing tools, you can say, yes, we have existing tools for identifying personal information in records, except that they only recognize personal information that has the form of regular expression. So, for example, a date. If it is written, we have already a problem with the date because in North America, well, actually in the United States, the month comes before the day in a date, while in Canada, the day comes before the month. So even when you have a regular expression of information, you may have issue inconsistency across countries. So these tools that we have that can recognize regular expression of information, such as born in, born on, and the names. But the problem is that these tools don't have contextual information related to the regular expressions. So how can we teach a machine to read the documentary context that is absent from current content-focused privacy detection models? Because the point is that if you have your date of birth in your degree diploma, that's not a problem. But if you have it in a medical record, that is maybe a problem. So this kind of question is important. What is the documentary information, the documentary context of the private information? Okay, so we developed an automated reading that is aimed at replicating the process of reviewing and severing documents of their embedded private information or private identifiable information, which extends beyond the way it is regularly expressed. And this approach should account for the persons, the actions, and the conventional structures and components of modern administrative records. In other words, we are teaching the tools, we have taught the tool to recognize when the context of private information on the basis of the structure of the record and of its components. And how do we do this? Well, we taught the tool archival diplomatics. Archival diplomatics is a conceptual framework for correlating the characteristics of the document to the probability of the presence of personal information. The reason is that diplomatic criticism is applied at item level and describes and categorizes the documentary features that are the necessary result of the actions that make records creation necessary in the first place. So it is not just as simple as at a glance recognizing a memo from a letter, from a contract, even though that by itself tells you where is more likely the private information is. It goes well beyond that because it goes to labeling. In fact, it's able to tag each component of the record. So we conducted it to train a model which identified the form of each document, so therefore what action was linked to it, the specific components corresponding to the extrinsic and intrinsic elements of form. And we use several natural language processing and computer vision techniques, envisioning the necessary steps that had to be taken to go from the record as it was to an annotated text. As a result, the team came up with a pipeline. So first, we used object detection and segmentation to draw boxes around the pieces of text that were meaningful. Then we converted the generated bounding box images to text via optical character recognition. Then we used name entity recognition to detect persons and organizations, and performed other natural language processing tasks, such as question answering, asking the question, who is the author? What is the intent of the document? When was written? Summarization, to help archivists to get a quick idea of the document, which may be hundreds of pages long. And text classification, to extract other information, indicating, for example, what is the protocol, the area where all the names and the dates are, or the scatocol, the end of the record where the signature, the authentication is, the start at the end of each document, etc. Okay, so that is a study. We actually have produced a tool, and Vicky Lemieux is in charge of that, so I will not discuss that, or we will be here for the whole night. So another study, very different, the UNESCO audio archives. So UNESCO has audio records for the period 1950s, 1980s. 6,500 are available on digital platform, but only 800 are described because problem, they are in more than 70 languages. Most of them in French, English, and Spanish, but 4% many languages in the same record. So the researchers are Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the archivist of UNESCO, and Peter Sullivan. These are the leading researchers. Peter Sullivan is an AI person. So they started with speech transcription using natural language processing. Now, what is the problem with speech transcription? Is big problem with speech transcription. These are spoken languages by people often from a different language. So the interviews, the reports, etc., are made with people who are authorities of the time, big personalities who are from different countries, who may be from, I don't know, from a German-speaking country, but they're speaking English. So there are accents to deal with, plus the personal way of pronouncing things. So that was a problem. We tested a very large number of tools, and the one that worked the best, also with different accent, was Whisper Large v3 of OpenAI. Then we had to identify the type of record using, again, diplomatics. So among all these recordings, we identified 6 types of record: interviews, radio programs, conferences, press conferences, reports, declarations or statements. Why it is important? It is important for labeling, because if we are dealing with interviews, the names of the persons and the dates and the subject matter are at the beginning, in the protocol, in the beginning of the record. If instead we are dealing with reports, the same things are at the bottom of the record. So it is important to understand the genre, the type of record we're dealing with, because then the tool will be able to know where to find names and dates and topics. So a moment of reflection before we go further. The archival profession has considered for several years the datification of records as a necessity due to the requirement of the technology needed to establish control over the records. Okay, so we had to transform the discourse in a record in data, the datification of records. Well, what we found out in all these studies, that we found out that the archival profession has datified records forever by using paleography and diplomatics to take them apart and to recognize the data within the record. I mean, diplomatics, say, from 1681 has done this. Computer vision and natural language processing specialists have explained to us the need to label records, and we finally recognized through this research that labeling or tagging was an integral part of our archival competence. That's what we study school. So the saying goes, the more it changes, the more is the same. Okay, let's move to something more complicated. There are 3 types of AI environment, fundamentally, okay? So the first type is the type in which no human is involved, is totally autonomous. So what you have sensors, you see all of them have loops, right? But they're different loops. So the sensors feel the environment and get the data out of it. The sensors processes this data and determines the responses to real-world stimuli and passes this information to the actuators. That can be hardware or software. And the actuators execute or affect the responses to real-world stimuli. The consequences of these actions are measured by the sensors again, and the loop continues. It's a sense-action feedback loop. Now, in the first case, we have an autonomous AI system. Perganet is an autonomous AI system. No humans are involved. You pass the records through it, thousands of them, and it tells you what the notarial sign are, who the notary is, etc. So it creates the metadata. That's the first type. The second type instead is a recommendation system. So humans are involved, but marginally, in the sense that the control checks with the humans before passing the information to the actuators. And then the process continues and the loop continues. And this is the case of the UNESCO study that I have just described. And then we have action systems, and action systems are our biggest problem. It is when humans have shared agency. And a typical example is digital twins. So you see in brackets, I wrote that Perganet is a tool that exists for the use of archives. UNESCO study is a tool that exists for use by the archives and it is built by the archives. Digital twins is something that will happen to archives and in the archives, and you will see what the problem is. Before I present you a typical study, let me make you an example. There is a digital twin at the airport of Vancouver, which regulates the move of the passengers from one gate to another and through security, etc. What happens is that while the AI system controls the whole thing, there is also controlling room with actual people who check what the system is doing. And if they see a problem, they can correct it. So those are digital twins, is when actions happens at the same time, humans and AI. Now, they can make independent decisions and take independent actions. But these actions can be concurrent, can be disjoint or joint, can be in conflict, can be for correction, as the case of the airport, or for enhancement, or can be overriding power when the human realizes that the AI is doing something wrong, then immediately stops it. Can be one at a time action, like driving a car, right? You can hand off the responsibility to AI or take it back. So what are the boundaries that needs to be established? And can be only for emergencies, but who decides when there is an emergency? Okay. Problems. These are dynamic environments. There are time constraints. There are real-time requirements. They are multi-agent. They are collaborative, but also competitive. So there are different degrees of autonomy. Who is accountable for what action? Who is going to be responsible? Well, here is a study that is carried out at Carleton University with a partner, and it is called Digital Twin. Provides a definition for a digital twin. A digital twin is a set of virtual information constructs, representation, that mimics the structure, the context, and the behavior of a natural, engineered, or social system that is dynamically updated with data from its physical twin, has predictive capability, and informs decisions that realize value. So this bidirectional interaction from the physical entity to AI and back is central to the idea of digital twin. And this is used in engineering. You might have seen it on TV in the medical show when people do surgery looking at what AI is showing rather than at what is under their hands. So biomedical, atmospheric, etc. So our case studies is led by Tracy Loriot, professor at Carleton. The research question is, if the digital twins intermediate and automate actions and decisions that affect social and material outcomes, how should records about those actions, decisions, and processes be managed and preserved in the long term? Can AI, machine learning, enable that preservation of those records? And how would those processes be preserved? So the Carleton University Immersive Data Studio tested the preservation of a specific digital twin to assess whether AI can automate the preservation of the twin and the technology, and explore how the codes can be preserved. Okay. Now, we are dealing with spatial digital twins. This is very important to us, to all of us, archivists in particular, but also librarians and information people. Why? Do you remember the blueprints? We are required by law, certainly in North America and in Europe, to preserve the blueprint of every building for as long as the building stands, and possibly for a long time afterwards, right? It's necessary. Anything happens, what do you do without a blueprint, right? Okay, forget it. Now we have digital twins. What is it? There is a specific spatial context, provide a holistic, dimensional, and location-based representation of assets, infrastructure, and systems. And this doesn't refer just to the built environment. So when I was in Abu Dhabi, I went to the Museum of Civilization, and there were on the table all these physical twins of buildings that either have been built or were going to be built. And that gave you a clear idea. You say, okay, so the spatial digital twin is the same thing, all it is digital. Nope, because it includes not only the entities, but also the processes, anything that happens to those buildings. So look at this. We have a physical twin on the left. On the right, we have a digital twin that not only represents the physical twin, but manages all the data related to that twin and analyzes them. And this data related to electricity, temperature, air circulation, everything that happens. So the researchers identified multiple platforms, hardware systems, software management systems, asset management databases, applications, you name it, virtual reality, etc., and discovered practices such as building information modeling, architectural design and drawing, photogrammetry, database creation, interoperability, open source, and storage. So most of these practices are to create the digital replicas of the assets and to develop ways to render the data viewable. Okay, look at this. First round of interviews. What did we see? Okay, look at the hardware. Well, just 2 types. But look at the softwares used. And look at the software platforms used just for one building at Carleton. Okay, and all the data types that are in there. And this is no longer like preserving a blueprint. The blueprint is not there. We have to be able to see how these things are working. So after meeting with engineers and managers, the team discovered that the work for these actors is informed by operations data, the automation of data captured by sensing pre-programmed environmental parameters to operate the temperature and air circulation of environments. So a building circulatory system, not just a 3D rendering of the building's architectural features. The building environmental view is the circulatory system, such as heating, ventilation, air conditioning, electricity, lighting, heating, cooling, as physical assets that are remotely operated by sensors and meters. They also discovered lots of subcontractors who dealt with this. So when we talk about records creators, it's not just one. It's not just the body that builds the building. That's the minor thing. There are lots of subcontractors that deal here. So, second round interview, what did we see? Architectural views, okay. These are all the technologies, hardware and software and data types. And then we have the building environment view that actually controls and regulates the whole thing. And these are all the systems that control it. And then you have the archival view. Who is working there? Well, the archives at Carleton uses Archivomatica to try and keep something, uses the Dublin core for the metadata, and all these other things that archives use, but doesn't take them that far. Because at the end of the day, what are the things that they look for? The building management, seals and certification. Look at the list. These are all traditional records. They look for blueprints. But where are the blueprints? They're looking for standards. Well, the software, yes. They're looking for agreements, the legal records, the contracts. But that do not substitute what we had before. So the object of the study includes many autonomous systems that are connected, but they're not integrated. There is no governance structure for the whole thing. There are many interactive records that are not static, they are dynamic. So they cannot be preserved as they are. Dynamic means that they overwrite themselves. It also means that the rules according to which they are manifested change constantly. Organizations have responsibilities that are not coordinated. Those who operate the systems in the Carleton study are actors that have authority only on their own systems, but not on the others. So should the Carleton archives be the coordinator of the system output? The archives that has jurisdiction on the records of the university is the Carleton archives, but the buildings are on city land. And so the City of Ottawa archives should be concerned. Who is accountable for the preservation of those records? Okay, and this takes us to the paradata study, which is really about accountability. So the paradata study is not the case study, it's a general study, which means that it concerns all archival functions. The purpose of the paradata study is to develop an approach for documenting the AI process to fulfill archival accountability in the use and preservation of artificial intelligence, supporting the authenticity of the outcome. Here is the list of the researchers, lead researchers: Pat Frank, Babak Amidzadeh is a computer engineer, Scott Cameron works at the Bank of Canada as a records manager, Norman Muradin is an AI professor at University of California, etc. So these are the main researchers, but many more work on it. And there are several articles that have already come out on this. Okay, so explainable AI has received lots of attention, but is not very useful. Explainable AI focuses on why a tool produced a given output from a given set of inputs. But accountable AI also considers who is responsible for all of this. So anything goes wrong, to whom do we point the finger? So accountable AI considers the individuals, the organizations, the environment in which AI tool operates. So paradata is necessary to explain why, how, by whom, to what effect a tool was used and kept in a particular context. So here is the definition of paradata. Paradata is information about the procedures and tools used to create and process information resources, along with information about the operation of the tools, the execution of the procedures, and the persons carrying out those procedures and using those tools. And you can see here that this information must be at every single step, also when the steps are repeated. As you can see, the problem is framed, the data sets are generated, they are processed, they go to develop the model. Oops, doesn't work. Go back, redo the data sets, go to the model development, and so on. And all of this needs to be described in detail. So what is the difference between metadata and paradata? Metadata is data about a record needed to search for that record, to display it, to analyze that record, so basically to identify it. Paradata is data about methodologies, processes, and persons associated with the production and assembly of records. So there are technical paradata. What is the model that has been tested and selected? What are the metrics for evaluations? What are the logs generated? What is the model training data set? Just keep in mind that any model is only as good as the data sets that were fed to it. What were the training parameters for the model? And if you have bought the tool, you need to keep all the vendor documentation and the versioning information. And then, of course, the organizational paradata. What is the AI policy of the archives? What are the design plans? What is the training of the employees? What is the ethic code of the archives? What is the impact assessment? The implementing process, the regulatory requirements. So when we have shared agency, that is, we are dealing with a tool that it doesn't act on its own, but shares its actions with human beings, then you need a mix of continuous, sampled, and event-based information. You rely on predefined trigger point. You have to follow the feedback cycle model, the one that I showed you. So when you describe it, you have to say, what is the sensor designed to sense? What the controller designed to do, the actuators, etc. And then you have to associate what is sensed with how it is acted and the control logic used, plus the temporal dimension. So what is documented is the system by itself, independently of its specific uses. And here is the list of all the things. You will have these PowerPoints will be given to you, so you can see all the details. But also the governance and compliance information, So the organizational records that document the self-auditing process of the archives, the acceptance tests, etc. What you document is also the types of documents and records. So you need the log of the sensor data, the camera footage, the control directions, the process data, plus the log of human control actions, of automated system control actions, and effects, the log of sensor data and the camera footage. So what are the new information requirements we are dealing with? We need to preserve evidence of all the intermediary processes. The crucial information is not so much within the data point produced by the intermediary processes. It's about the relation between the data points. And maintain interdependency between intermediary processes and the decision formulated by the controllers is necessary. Records must compile data sets in such a way as to make the relationship between the processes sensible and understandable. Reflections. So traditionally, computer system is understood as a tool rather than as an agent. AI systems challenge this by increasing their accepted autonomy and introducing barriers to human comprehensibility. If AI systems are recognized in a juridical context as agents rather than as tools, and we are getting there, believe me, my colleagues who are the expert on AI already talk of them as agents. Then record keepers will need to adjust their focus accordingly. Under the existing frameworks, AI systems do not constitute the author responsible for the actions documented, okay? So you generate a record using AI, the author is not the AI system. The author is the person who used the AI system to generate the record. Without legislation recognizing the status of AI system as juridical persons, AI systems do not constitute authors responsible for their own actions. Now, unfortunately, there are proposals for the implementation of legal personhood for AI systems in the European Union, making them partially responsible for the actions in which they participate. So AI systems would no longer be agents of human interactions and actions, but may comprise entities exerting agency, even if they may not be responsible as human agents are. That is, you can't put them in jail, right? At the most, you can use a hammer to destroy them. So then, whose accountability? Whose liability? Conclusion. The decisions made and the actions taken by AI-enabled systems must be documented. Some of the documentation will be automatic as part of the AI system. Some will be human-created prior to or after the creation and implementation of the system. For example, every archive should have a procedure on how to choose the system, how to use it, or how the people who have to use it are educated, what the ethics are, etc. Paradata is recommended to document the AI process and to promote the archive's transparency and accountability. The record perspective supports the capture and preservation of paradata and is necessary to ensure the AI process is captured in a way that preserves the characteristics of authoritative records as documentary heritage, their reliability, that is the trustworthiness of their content, accuracy, the trustworthiness of their data, authenticity, the trustworthiness of their identity and of their integrity and usability. Guidance in the form of laws, regulations, and frameworks must be monitored, but mostly the custodians and the preservers of documentary heritage must acquire AI literacy. And the study on AI literacy has been led by Richard Arias Hernandez, University of UBC, and Moises Rockenbach, University of Portugal, Coimbra. So here you have a schema that shows you the knowledge needed for archivists or anybody who deals with records to acquire AI literacy. And you can see in clear blue the necessary fundamental knowledge, which is the concepts and theories of records management and archives. Then you can see in orange the need for data literacy for the concepts of provenance and paradata, for datification and digital transformation, possibly using diplomatics and paleography, for AI-enhanced archival science literacy, AI integrated records management literacy. And then, sorry, you need some computer science knowledge. You need to understand what algorithms are. You need to understand the types of machine learning, supervised, semi-supervised, unsupervised. You need to understand computer vision and all those applications, and especially generative AI that is messing our life every minute. But note something, the black stuff is the biggest stuff there. They have to do with ethics and they have to do with law. So you need to know regulations and legalities. You need to know data protection and sensitivity, ensuring security and appropriate handling of sensitive data. You need accountability and ethical codes. You need transparency and explainability. You need to control bias and diversity. We actually have produced a tool that works very well, that identifies biased language, proposes alternative, explains why it is biased. It's a very nice tool, and we developed it at UBC. And then we need, you have to think of the users. So using AI to address complex issues, methods for evaluating and refining system, and you have to learn to collaborate across disciplines. So collaboration and communication, AI adoption and governance, with the participation of people from different fields, all the relevant fields. And with the above said, if you would like more information, by all means, go to the website of InterPARES Trust AI. When you go to the website, if you look at the ribbon on top, you can find the word dissemination. And you click on it, and it shows you the different types of dissemination, articles, talks, symposia, whatever. You click on the one you're interested in, and then you scroll down and you can get access to the speeches that we have given, to the articles that we have published, etc. So thank you for your patience in listening to me, and I will stop sharing and be ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Luciana. Actually, on my own behalf and on behalf of all attendees, I would like to extend our deepest thanks to you, Professor Luciana, for your inspiring and insightful presentation. Actually, your expertise and thoughtful perspective have brought outstanding value to this gathering regarding how AI can be a powerful tool in the stewardship of documentary heritage. Actually, I like the archive and records and AI literacy framework you ended with very much. I like it so much, and I see it as a manifesto of skills and competences that should be looked at by heart. So thank you so much, and thank you for this consistent way of just delivering the knowledge. And now we'll take the advantage of the time, and let's move directly to the dozens of questions that we received. And let's start with the first one. What are the limitations of AI in archival tasks compared with the human archivist? I think this is $1 million question.
Well, it is $1 million questions because the limitations are enormous. It's just the tools that we have developed, they're trustworthy. But the tools that are around, they need lots of human control. So even Whisper that we use at UNESCO, that is very good. Whisper 3 of OpenAI is great. But even that makes mistakes. So it needs human control. We are not at the stage where we can entrust functions like arrangement and description to AI, although the team led by the NATO archivists has developed the system. In fact, it presented it at the symposium in Bologna, and it is, I believe, posted among the symposia paper on the website. So if people go to dissemination symposia and go to the Bologna symposium and finds the team from NATO, it's very good. And yes, humans must have control over AI because at the end of the day, AI is not going to be made an agent. Nobody's so irresponsible to do that.
Yeah.
So we will be responsible. And
He
if
lear- he
damage is
learns from
done,
us.
we go to jail.
It learns from us. Perfect. Thank you for this very telegraphic answer. And Abir Al-Hagrasi is asking, say that, can we edit any of the details or update the details in the spatial digital twin?
Again, I'm not sure I understood.
Can we edit any? You mentioned the spatial digital twin.
Yes.
So she asking that if there is a possibility to edit or update the details of it.
Yes, it is. It is described. There are lots of speeches about it on the website. Again, go to Symposia, find the digital twins. There is also the possibility for anybody of contacting directly the researchers responsible. And you will see there, Tracy Loriot is the primary researcher responsible for it. So they can send you material. And I believe that there is also an article about it among the things posted on the website. Because I don't post the things, Corinne Rogers does, who is the administrator for the project. I'm sure she did, but I'm sure she did. There are stuff. And it is very scary thing, the one of the digital twins. And the shared agency, okay, let me help you there. We have published articles of shared agency. And they are posted when you go to the articles. So shared agency is not just that one digital twin, it is anyone that is a digital twin. And this is worrisome.
Please.
Sometimes I wonder whether these many airplane accidents that are taking place around the world have something to do with that.
Yeah, we're all scared of this. Okay, so there is another question from Omar Golkhan, and he said, thank you so much, Dr. Luciana. And could you share specific examples where AI has already been successfully implemented for archival management? Just one or two examples from your experience.
We don't know of any.
He need if there is something.
They're tested. They're being tested. So we're using Perganet, and it's being tested, and it works. But in the archives, they have not yet. The partners that participate in InterPARES are the only one who do this, and they do it very carefully and as a special project, but not as a regular use. They don't do it. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, okay. That's what leads us to the next question related about security. So
yeah,
there is a question mentioning that what is the risk arise when AI is applied to archives without input from the archival professional or any security concerns?
You lose everything that you have, can't trust anything.
Sure, sure.
That's how it is. I mean, we are the trustworthy custodians. If we don't supervise everything and if we don't go ahead, AI is only damaging everything. It's just, you know, the things that we're doing. For example, innocuous instrument, the technology, the tool that we have developed to identify bias, that doesn't do any damage. That is really useful. Okay. So if you need to, I don't know, any researcher wants to understand bias in records, etc., can use that tool. Is really useful. That can't do anything because it doesn't change anything. Right? Vicky Lemieux has developed a tool which is called Clio X. Go and look for it. Clio is CLIO and then X.
Okay.
And look for it and for its description. And it's actually active, can be used now. And it is used for distant reading. Distant reading means that you want information in a font, an archival font, where you suspect there is lots of privacy and you can't get it. This tool is able to go through all the material without allowing anybody to read it and keeping it in the custody of whoever has the custodianship of it. So without taking it, is able to go there and to give you the information you want, stripped of anything that is private.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
that is there. She presented it in Bologna. The presentation is posted on the website, and there is also in the presentation an actual little video with the presentation of Clio X that tells you how you do it. Perfect. It does use blockchain for authenticity, but you need to have a wallet to make your blockchain wallet to enter in it, and then you can, any researcher can use it. So for access, we are pretty ahead as it regards access. Arrangement description is problematic.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about how is the AI helping deal with the large volumes of born digital and digitized record? I think they need, I know you already mentioned it during this, but maybe more elaboration will be a benefit for our attendees. So how do you describe, how you give this more enlightenment about the AI will help in the large volume?
Well, I think that the most important thing that AI can do is actually to create the metadata. Yes. Of all the digitized stuff, we have so much digitized stuff. People cannot go through every single document and create the metadata, but AI can do it in quite a reliable way when the data set that are fed to the model are the right ones. Again, you need to have a good standard for metadata and archives. You need to have people trained in the creation of those metadata, and then AI is pretty reliable in doing that. And it has been in the case of UNESCO, for example. Once you know exactly what type of record you have, that's where the knowledge of diplomatics comes. Because you would know what types of records have, and then you feed all those types of records with examples of metadata as data sets into the model. And then you get all the metadata creation done. That's the most useful thing that you can do.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you on this. Related to this and moving to the ethical part, how can AI support multilingual and cross-cultural access to archives?
Okay, it can. So Mohammed Abdul Majid, who is my co-director, is Egyptian. he has created a tool that actually is able to deal with all African languages and all variations of Arabic languages.
Perfect.
And that's available, and he's very proud of it. And there are lots of publications on it. Now I have challenged him to do the same with all the European languages.
That's good. It's a start as well.
Well, his argument is that all the existing AI is already trained in European
Yes.
languages.
Yeah.
Yes, in English and maybe French. Definitely not in German or in Spanish or in Polish.
I think they have some challenges.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. Okay. The next question is about the ethical. We're still in the ethical room. What's the ethical concern you think that should be adopted by archivists to be aware when to deploy the AI and when they shouldn't deploy it? I like the question. So I think there is some ethical concern. You need to put the spot on it.
Well, I mean, you always cover your back by describing what you're doing. So
The proverb.
that's the first important thing. You never use a tool without explaining exactly why you chose that tool, what it is supposed to do, how you have tested it, what are the results of that testing, and why you think it is safe to use it for this specific thing. That's what is absolutely necessary. And after that, you pray.
Cross your finger. Okay. The next question is about how can archival taxonomies, ontologies, and controlled vocabularies be used to improve AI models? I think this is a very important question, just to give at least a tips for such a
Well, the way you do it is to build data sets that are consistent,
yes,
that respects all the standards, and then you train the models, and then you have a supervised model and a supervised system. And that works. You know what the problem with AI is, really, after all this time, is that we researchers don't have the money to develop and distribute the tools. We can do the research, create a prototype, and then expect that people will use it. The industry wants the money. So, for example, the Italian team has worked for a few years with a Norwegian developer to develop arrangement of disorganized records, okay? An arrangement system that I don't know many of you know, but at the end of the 1700s, archivists became enchanted with the concept of the encyclopedia, and everything had to be organized by subject. So they changed the order of all the records in the archives, grouping them by subject rather than by creator or whatever. So they made a mess. So now European archivists spend lots of times finding out what the original organization was and reconstructing it, right? So they did this work with this Norwegian technology group, whose name will not be made, and they actually were able to develop the tool that would work. And then the agency said, you want me to develop it and distribute? You pay for it. We don't have the money to pay for it. How can we pay for it? So that ended there. So the group then brought these results to an Australian team, Australian technology people who seem interested in risking their money in developing it. The problem is that archives do not produce money for these people. There are not enough of them. There is not enough technological activity in them. And so the problem with AI tools is, yes, we can develop the ones that work, But then if nobody produces them because they don't make enough money out of them, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's an issue. I think if they can find some sort of getting the attraction of the financial supporter or sponsors that they have their own company or interested in this field of R&D, I think maybe they can just support something like that because they're trying to hunt patents or any of this futuristic research.
Look, Mohammed works with Google.
Okay.
He has tried to convince Google to produce this.
For how many years past?
No.
For a long time.
They don't until they know that they will produce enough to make lots of money. And so they count how many national archives are out there. That wouldn't be enough. You know.
It's a business issue.
It is a business issue. That's what it is. And maybe we should acquire the ability to sell this by saying, look, every student would need to use it. Anybody who needs to access government records will need to use it. You know, under the Freedom of Information Act, access is the thing that attracts the most. It's one of the reasons why Vicky was able to produce Clio X, because access was the issue. And everybody wants to access all the information. Nobody wants to pay for it, right?
Yeah. You bring on the table the main issue. Exactly, yes. Dr. Hazem Abbas, he asking about how do you see artificial intelligence contributing to the identification of missing and fragmented section within the historical document?
Okay, so what would be able to do if the material where parts are missing has been digitized, and if you digitize things, fragments found, it is, and if you have a database that contains all of this, it is able to do that. It actually is. But of course, you need to have digitized both records or sets of records that are missing parts and the missing parts. But after that, once everything is digitized, it can do that. It can recognize.
Yes, they can complete the missing part.
You know, one thing that people need to understand is that in the far past, there were standards, calligraphic standards. There were standards, the ink was made in a certain way. The paper was made in a certain way. And so artificial intelligence, once it learns it from a big data set, can easily find it.
Perfect.
I don't see you any longer. You gone.
There is something in even that the camera just shutting down because it gives me a sign that we're almost done. But there is two.
You have 7 minutes.
There is still, how can traditional description standards like ISAGE and also EAD be integrated into AI systems?
Yeah, they can. It's not difficult after if you have digitized the material and you have created the metadata. After that, it is very easy to have the data sets and have the various stuff. In fact, an example is the NATO project, the NATO study, because that's exactly what they've been doing.
Excellent. On the other hand, there is something I think it's very important to just give more focus on it. Do you think that there is some steps should be taken from the library and also other document schools, the university, to integrate artificial intelligence in their programs with focusing on document and archives and heritage?
Absolutely.
What's your reflection? And please give the time for this as you're giving a roadmap for that, please, Luciana.
Well, I mean, look, we do it at UBC. Mohammed teaches this in our information studies program, right? So, yes, done it. And what you need to do is when you create a curriculum in which all the parts fit together. So that you don't have to tell the story from the beginning in each one
Sure.
of the courses. The courses
Don't
must be
reinvent the wheel.
designed in a way that the blocks fit together. So, for example, the course in which they teach diplomatics should be coordinated with the one in AI, labeling and tagging and all of that. So not just in isolation, and then the students have to make the connection. You have to make the connections in the curriculum.
Yeah. Not just focusing on the components itself, but link it as what we call it interdisciplinary.
Interdisciplinary, absolutely. Not multidisciplinary.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
detach each discipline as if it existed on its own.
Blocks, as a separated blocks.
This is the most important contribution of InterPARES over 27 years, to have all these computer engineers talking our language.
Yeah, exactly.
And understanding the issues.
Yeah, for sure. The last question, because I'm sure that we have many questions, but we have to know. What's your futuristic vision for the application of AI? Do you think that there is more engaging for technology, or there is still something we can expect it in the future?
Look, I don't know. It seems to me that now it's basically impossible for the normal human being to be able to understand whether he or she can trust an image or a video or any politician talking to them. It could be AI, it could be whatever.
Yes. Yes.
Citizen journalism who document demonstrations in the street. Nobody knows whether it is AI.
Even Hollywood now having an issue related to acting without having a permission from the actors.
Exactly, exactly. So I think that the future should be to have a methodology, a system for understanding what you can trust. And they are at Calton, there is the computer science team of InterPARES that is actually working on graph theory to develop this system for recognizing something that is not real.
Oh, perfect. So I think we go back again to the square one about the ethical issue and concern that should be taken into consideration, I guess.
Yeah, it goes back to trust. What can you trust?
Yes.
And unfortunately, the consequence of people trusting everything is that soon people will not trust anything.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, it's a loop. It's a loop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to end this one with many thanks to you, Luciana, Professor, I'm really, Professor Luciana, enjoying this one, having this interesting journey with you within this type of a critical technology that I think will overwhelming us. I think not just only in the research or academia, but I think in the daily things.
The daily issue.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you again, appreciate your time and this valuable knowledge, and I will leave the last word for you, and with a promise at the right time, at the convenient time for you to see you again. So the last time is for you, and as you see, there are many hearts, many thumbs up coming from our attendees, so I will leave the last word for you. Please, Professor
Thank you,
Luciana.
everybody. It has been a pleasure, and I hope that if you have more questions, you will keep in touch. You find my email anywhere.
Sure, it's available in the. Thank you so much, and
Okay.
I do thank our attendees until we meet again in another webinar from Naseej Academy. Thank you, Professor Luciana. See you again.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
شكرا جميعا. شكرا. Bye bye.